far about Saturn in Pisces has been really great, and we haven't gotten to it yet. So now we will. Here we go. The first degree of Pisces, the Chandra symbol for that degree is a field of dandelions. All these dandelions together. Okay, imagine yourself as one of myriad dandelions, beautiful flowers flowing in the breeze. All of these flowers come from the same source. And anybody that's watching, if you can just put a comment in the comment box and let me know if my audio is good, I would so appreciate that. I see a few of you are live with me. There was a movie that Robin Williams made that's quite well known. It was one of his least successful movies in terms of how many people really love it, even though it was his best movie. It went too far for people. And I saw it a number of times and was completely swept away in its power when it came out. And the movie is called What Dreams May Come. You may have seen it, What Dreams May Come. And it's the story of a man who is married to a woman who is extremely close to him, but who is half crazy. And they have these two children together, and through a series of horrendous, you could say accidents or strange events, everybody in that family gets killed. The two children together, the man, later on his wife. I'm not going to go into all the details. But they meet together in the death realms, and the whole movie basically takes place in the death realms. And it's the visual description, the visual depiction of the death realms is absolutely mind-blowing. And one of the things that they do is they show everything in terms of colors and patterns because these folks are very oriented towards visual art. And so the visual art is what really comes through everywhere in the death realms. And everything is so beautiful and amazing. But most of all, it's a world of flowers. Flowers and their colors. And the actual death realms are just resplendent with flowers. Of course, there's many death realms, but the ones that are more harmonious. And those flowers are so abundant. They're not limited like the earth to a certain amount or a limited small plot of land or something. They're everywhere. So when there's this field of dandelions, it's actually invoking how the flowers are in the death realms. It's invoking how it is to join forces with everyone when you die and become one with everybody, and therefore feel this ecstatic release because you're no longer cut off onto your own personal private ground. You're at one with all of creation. And many people, after they die, don't go into that right away or easily because they're still caught up in various mind states. But that's the pull and the call and the cry of death, of the death realms. That's why people do feel so amazed by and fascinated with near-death experiences that so often have these magical worlds that people come into where the light is so strong, where the visuals are so powerful, where the whole thing is so alive and spiritually saturated with goodness and beauty. That's actually what we associate with so-called heaven. It's a vivid display of all of life connected up as one, all of existence. And so the flowers that there are in heaven are the flowers that usher us across into at-one-ment. Now, if the first degree of Pisces is this at-one-ment that encompasses death and life and all worlds together, the suggestion is that the whole Saturn in Pisces dynamic that we've been exploring together is actually all about reconnecting with wholeness, reintegrating, recalibrating. It's about coming back into resonance with the whole of things instead of being cut off into fragments. Pisces is the sign of the zodiac that has the strongest instinctive, emotional, and energetic feeling for wholeness, connection, what it is to be at one with other people, with animals, with plants, with minerals, with the whole earth, with fairy beings, with those who have died, with angels, with all kinds of worlds, cosmic beings. So this is Anne speaking here, and I just want to say, Elias just gave us this amazing definition of the sign of Pisces. The sign of Pisces is the sign of the zodiac that has the strongest instinctive, emotional, and energetic feeling for wholeness, connection, what it is to be at one with other people, with animals, with plants, with minerals, with the whole earth, with fairy beings, etc. And so, what we have in Saturn and Pisces is a restoring of perspective, a return to a feeling for how it all comes together. Now I'm going to share with you an experience that I had when Saturn went into the first degree of Pisces in the fall of 1991. And it was one of the most outstanding moments of ever for me. And it came in the face of tragedy and ruin, as as often happens with Pisces. Okay, so what was happening with Sarah, and Sarah was Elias's wife at that time, was in the midst of being diagnosed as having breast cancer, and she was in the midst of deciding not to have surgery, and she was in the midst of dedicating herself to her journey of the soul, her cancer journey, and all of that was filling my world at the time. Now, if I were a regular person, and if Sarah were a regular person, if we were living our lives in the usual way, we would have both been so crushed and so freaked out about what was happening that that would have been the dominant chord. And it's obviously a depressing and it's a really heavy feeling. Clearly, when somebody has breast cancer and it's a fairly advanced stage already, and you know they just wanted to cut her open and cut it out, and it was just intense. But what happened was in my Grail chart, in the spiritual chart, which we call Boundless Quest, the sun is in 1 degree Pisces. I came into my Grail sun in 1 degree Pisces world as Saturn was there in the sky at that point. And what happened was, for me, that I right away got it. And I can't remember exactly what prompted me to do this in some outer sense, but it just seems like it was just there for me to do this inside. I got it right away that even if she died of cancer, that it wasn't at all like it seemed, and that if I just refused to get caught in the melodrama of it, it was going to be a journey that would be well worth its while for her, for me, and for the whole world. And I just knew that right away. But I didn't just know that. I acted on it. I acted on it decisively in a way that changed all futures for me. Because what happened was I was scheduled at that point. I had already arranged it to teach a series of classes that were supposed to be kind of the ultimate classes on the stars. It was all being set up in a very big way, and we were inviting all the people that had been coming to our classes, and we were not charging a single penny. Anybody could come, and that was that. And I'm just going to pause here and say these classes he's speaking about are the classes that my teacher, Mark Borax, did with him. That Mark actually asked Elias, would you teach me? Would you teach me? Would you teach me? And Elias kept telling him for like 2 or 2.5 years, I'm not teaching, I'm not teaching, I'm not teaching, or maybe a year and a half, somewhere in that time period. And then he called Mark up and said, okay, I'm going to teach. And so Elias, there were 30 of these classes over this period of, I think, 2.5 years. They met once a week in Elias and Sarah's cabin in little house in outside the Santa Cruz Mountains, in the mountains outside of Santa Cruz in Bonnie Doon, in the redwood forest. And what that ended up being was a mystery school. And in those classes, Elias introduced this this system of astrology, Star Genesis, that he had downloaded years before, been working with for 13 years, and not told anybody about really. And so in those classes, there were 30 of them. He taught this system of astrology that I have trained in with Mark Borax. And the transcripts from those classes became what we call the Destiny chapters, which is an unpublished manuscript that you can actually purchase from Mark Borax. Um, and it's the foundation, and everything of this whole entire system is in those chapters. So I just wanted to let you know, like, what he's talking about. And it was a very significant thing because he had downloaded this system of astrology from ancient Atlantis and was using it and had been working with it and working with it and working with it, and then he finally felt ready to share it with others. So back to the transcript at hand. He says, and what actually happened was from the very first moment that these classes took place on a weekly basis, they were so different from any other classes before or since that those who were present were completely taken over by these classes. I was too. Sarah was also. It's a whole big story. But what does it have to do with this whole Saturn and Pisces thing? We were entering into the beginning stages of Saturn and Pisces, which would come and go. It would go in and out for a while. Well, it was that I knew. Now, this makes no sense to anybody's mind, including mine, but I knew that if we could create a star wisdom, a star truth, a star path, star magic that was sufficiently fluent and real and true, then the connection that I had with Sarah would continue after her death, and in effect, we would be creating a star path that she could participate in after death, and that in effect, it would help her to go through her death and to be reborn in it. And that's what this whole star thing was all about to begin with. But I didn't just feel that in some mystical haze. I just acted as though that was the case. And so each class, each session became stronger than the last, and we were off in months of the most remarkable teaching I've ever been able to participate in. Now, there's something about Saturn and Pisces where the most unlikely things, the most impossible things are what happens. So here's Ellias giving us a clue to what's going to happen with Saturn and Pisces for the next 2.5 years once it enters in. That the most unlikely and impossible things are what happens. Nothing is the way you would think it was. We're going to be experiencing this for 2.5 years. We might as well just get used to it, and a point when it will hit a really strong note will be later next year when Saturn goes direct in 1 degree Pisces. That will be a real high point. What will that do? It will get us to realize that something new is happening, that something new has been happening throughout most of 2023, that it's continuing, and that it's hitting a point where it now becomes aware of itself. The ultimate symbolism of what I was saying about the flowers really being the flowers of the death realms is that we dream. Now listen to this carefully. We dream into flowers in life. When we see flowers, it sets us into a dream. When we see flowers after we die, we awaken into those flowers. They welcome us because the life after death is a life of awakening. It's a life of coming to ourselves. It's a life of remembering who we are. That's its whole purpose, its whole intent, its whole focus. And this world that we live in is intended to be a dream. It's a dream we can gradually awaken through to where we're no longer lost in the dream. But there's always a lingering feeling. All you have to do is look into nature, any kind, with an inner heart space open, and you'll see that in a very unusual sense of the word, You are dreaming into what you're seeing. Now, I don't mean that just in the sense that it's vague and nebulous and all of that. I mean like a lucid dream, like a dream that's more lucid and clear than waking states are. I mean that nature wakes you up, but in a dreamlike way. In other words, that you have to venture there. You have to go into it. Why most people don't get that much out of nature is they don't actually enter it, enter her. They don't actually drop through. They view it from outside. But if you don't do that, and I know there are many people on this call who don't do it that way, who actually do live full on into what nature speaks, what's happening is it is a dreamscape, and it's a dreamscape that's more awake than wakeful states, because wakeful states are not very awake. As you discover after you die, when you realize that even when you were most awake, you were still asleep. I'm getting into some intense territory here. Okay, so the point of all this is that we are going to be realizing that we're in a dream, and we're going to be becoming lucid in that dream, and that itself will change everything. It's that important, it's that crucial. Now, I know that most everybody on this call has had this experience at least a number of times, maybe many times, but I'm going to describe it because it's worth going into here. Yeah, I'll even be so bold as to do it this way. The last major inner journey that I took with Sarah when she was alive was late in the summer of 1993, and we took mushrooms, magic mushrooms, and had a classical psychedelic journey together of the most ecstatic kind, which meant that we were experiencing nature as a cosmic realm. In fact, we knew the sky and the sun and the woods and everything as being almost a transparent veil over a cosmic world that we could unite ourselves with through the colors and tones of nature. And when we did that, it was really a pivotal moment, even though we were so ecstatic that I can't even say that I was thinking about this or anything like that. But it was happening energetically, tremendously. What was happening? Well, we were preparing for Sarah's death by experiencing the fluidity of the threshold, and that we could cross over back and forth really easily without even thinking about it, and that in essence, we always had been in that multi-world space, and we didn't have to make a big deal out of it. That's what we knew together telepathically at that point, and we didn't say a word about that, but that's what it served to do. Okay, what I'm saying is that when we are in the deeper roots of this world, as Pisces always wants to be in the ocean that underlies the surface of the earth and permeates the planet in the living ethers. I'm going to read that again. Pisces, when we are in the deeper roots of this world, as Pisces always wants to be in the ocean that underlies the surface of the earth and permeates the planet in the living ethers. When we are in the living ethers, the watery realms, we are taken on a journey in which, and this could be in small ways, often it is, we suddenly realize that we're not limited to any one pattern, facet, aspect, way of being, but that we're actually flowing forth into all these different places at once, and they're all flowing forth into us, and therefore that we're in this magical soulscape, and it makes total sense, and we feel completely bathed in it. I haven't taken any sacred substances for many years, and I'm more in that than ever. And what is it that I'm really pointing toward? Well, it's simply this. We have a path to follow, that is going to be coming up next year more than it ever has before, and it can change everything if you go with it. And the path to follow is to discover what is sacred, what that word really means. Discover what it is to be in a sacred relation, because when you're in a sacred relation to the whole of life, it all speaks to you continuously. It reveals itself to you. It's a portal. Everything becomes a portal. Everything becomes a doorway. Everything becomes a gateway into the infinite, into the future, into all that is meant to be. And what I'm saying is, we're all going there together. And some of us will pretend that we don't even know anything about it and will act like nothing has changed, and we're still in the same old dry, flat place. But if enough of us are aware of it, we will be able to create a morphogenetic field by which humanity will begin to realize what's actually happening here, and that it isn't at all the world that we're told it is. Okay, recently I've been made aware that many people who are interested in the stars are becoming interested in Vedic astrology from India. And there's all kinds of stuff that's going on in the world, and some of it's pretty interesting and powerful. And as you may know, there's a different zodiac in a sense that comes through Vedic astrology. They're using the sidereal zodiac, which is like 26 degrees off from the tropical zodiac at this point, or whatever the exact number is. And so, in essence, every sign is one off from the way it was. Okay, I don't even want to go into the technicalities, but what it means is that what I think of as the constellations in the night sky, which are the origin point of the Babylonian zodiac, of the sidereal zodiac, of the Vedic zodiac, it actually comes from the actual fixed star constellations in the sky. That those are being tracked with not only by these amazing astronomical observations, but also by Vedic astrologers who are much more interested in the stars than they are interested just in the earth. They're much more in the cosmic aspect. Okay. Ever since I learned all about the constellations from Willie O. Suker at the end of the 1970s, not only have I been working with the prenatal epoch, but I've also been working with the constellations. Not just the signs, but also the constellations. And I see it the way he did, which is that the constellations stand behind the signs. And that's actually how it is astronomically. And so what happens, the only difference with my thing is in the constellations, they're not equal. They're not 30-degree segments each. They're whatever they show up as in the sky. So that's how I'm viewing them. But no matter what, what's happening is that the constellations are the other part of what the signs are showing, one facet of the stars. What the signs are, the tropical signs and so on, they are the face of things. They are how things play out in the world. And the constellations are where things are sourced and where they're really going in a greater sense. This is Anne. Now listen, because what he's about to say next is the key to this entire holy night and to Pisces. To Saturn in Pisces and to the sign of Pisces. Pisces, the sign of Pisces, has the constellation of the water bearer of Aquaria behind it. Almost the entire sign of Pisces has Aquaria inside it. So when I'm talking to you about Pisces, I'm really talking to you about Aquaria and the age of Aquaria. So that when Saturn goes into Pisces from a constellational point of view, you could say, we're entering the territory that will make it possible to imagine, conceive, and enter upon the Aquarian age. And so, Pisces is so much more than Pisces. Everything of Pisces is really about making the connection with the whole from a vivid, directional, I'm sorry, Pisces. Everything of Pisces is really about making the connection with the whole from a vivid, direct, experiential place. And so that's what we're talking about. And we're saying that late next year, this will be accentuated in the field of dandelions, and basically we'll be off in a new direction if we're willing to lucidly dream what this involves. So thank you for joining me for this 11th Holy Night. Um, I've enjoyed very much sharing these with you. I hope that you're gaining from them. I would love to hear what you're realizing, what you're learning. And tomorrow night will be the 12th Holy Night, and we'll be looking into Neptune going retrograde in 25 degrees of Pisces. I'm sorry, Neptune going direct in 25 degrees of Pisces on the 12th Holy Night. And that's tomorrow on Thursday. And then on Friday, I'm just going to briefly complete with the 13th Holy Night, which is the Spirit Night. So thank you so much, and be well.